I started the bolts, one at the top diagonal, one at the bottom even. Just run them down till they touch the O-ring and the cover was just touching it. Then put the other bolts in diagonal and evenly tighten them all, snug them all down. Then finish tightening them up to 105 inch-pounds. Be sure do not over tighten them. The heads will pop off and get caught in the timing belts somewhere down the road. I've seen it happen before. That's pretty much, that bolts down till it stops. Take a ratchet till it just touches the housing and then go down to 3 o'clock. And that's 105 inch-pounds. The new tensioner pulley is installed and the bolt tightens down to 40 foot-pounds. 15 millimeter. I'm going to blow out this timing cover area. Make sure there's no antifreeze on any of the pulleys or sprockets. I'll begin to set the belt on the crankshaft sprocket. Feed it up to the driver's side camshaft under the water pump and over the passenger side camshaft sprocket and around underneath the tensioner back down the crankshaft. I'm going to stick the new tensioner plunger assembly back into the housing. Takes those size bolts. If you're reusing the old tensioner plunger, slowly compress the center pin down till you can get a small Allen head through it to hold it down. And be sure you stick it through in a direction that you can pull it back out, not through the wrong side. It should sit in there with the open wide part pointing towards you. I'm going to install the tensioner and just thread it in about just a few threads, not much at all. Once you got the timing marks where you think they need to be, check and make sure that the marks on the camshaft are in between the two divots on both camshafts. The way you can just kind of anywhere between them, as long as they're on the insides of these two divots. You can just look at it. This tooth would be outside the divot and this tooth would be outside the divot. That's where it was on this one, was a tooth off. And this one's in the ballpark between these two divots. Anywhere between them, it's fine. And at the cranks at top dead center, I took a screwdriver, just kind of took the slack out of the belt. Make sure that they're going to settle there. Rotate the engine 2 times, the crankshaft 2 times, till these marks come back around. Screw this tensioner up to take the slack out of the belt, and use a screwdriver as a little extra shim to make sure the belt's kind of snug. And once it's rotated around twice, that settles the belt into its permanent location and squares it on all the sprockets. And then verify that the marks are still between those divots. And go ahead and tighten this tensioner plunger down to 250 foot-pounds. This bolt and this bolt. And you can pull this pin. Should be in business. Went ahead and removed the crank bolt I was using to turn the motor over with. Verify all your timing marks, nothing's loose in there, no debris on the belt. or caught up in the belt pulleys, sprockets, whatever. Go ahead and stick this timing cover back on. Make sure there's still a seal around the outside perimeter of that white line. The 10mm bolts tighten down to 105 inch-pounds. That looks good. Go ahead and put this engine puller hanger back on, and really do that anytime. Go ahead and mount the dampener back on. I've sprayed the socket out with brake cleaner and then sprayed some thin penetrating oil inside of it, and made sure the crankshaft end is free from debris. From this line forward. Don't get any oil on your belt back there. Go ahead and slip it on the crankshaft. It doesn't have a keyway on it. You can tap it on just a little tiny bit to get it started. I want to be using a bolt that's a little longer than a crank bolt to pull it on down. There's probably, the crankshaft is about an inch deeper than this bolt is, so it'll be alright. You really don't want to use just, this bolt's actually tapered. I'll get it most of the way down with that and finish up with this. Crank that bolt. The factory one tightens to 70 foot-pounds. I went ahead and mounted the accessory belt pulley for the alternator and power steering pump with the adjuster pointing under the alternator. I went ahead and laid the AC accessory drive belt in the direction it needs to go first before putting the belt on for the alternator. And I've laid the condenser back down in there. Still need to hook the lines up to it. Be sure you put your air conditioner belt on first, and then your alternator belt, and snug them down. The accessory belts are mounted back on there and tight with the correct direction pointed out for reusing them. And I went ahead and hooked the lower transmission line up to the auxiliary transmission cooler. There's a radiator hose in the bottom transmission line and the upper one. Go ahead and drop the radiator down into it. Went ahead and put the engine puller bracket back on it. And cleaned this water outlet housing up, the gristle off of it some. I've dropped the radiator down in it, slipped the condenser and the two bolts in the bottom condenser into its spot, put transmission lines, lower radiator hose on it. The 4 bolts holding a fan down, and plug the fan in. Just need to put the upper radiator hose back on it. I filled a full antifreeze, pretty much the maximum cold. It's on the inside there. See how it does. I haven't got the radiator bolted in, but it's not touching anything. Go ahead. Sounds good. And business. Let's put the nose back on it, and the radiator upper fork plate, headlights, bulb, washer fluid tank, and cruise control. It'll be good to go, and snap the battery jumper back on. Just release it off of this. Push that lever in, release it. Pressure transducer busted off of the air tester, was in an accident. Hood latch back on it. Should be good to go.